Before we begin, if you're new here, welcome to Echoes of Time. Hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. There is a room in Naples, Italy, that people enter, speaking, and leave in silence. Not because anyone asks them to be quiet, not because the guards insist, but because something inside that room does something to the human mind, something that no amount of preparation, no photograph, no description can fully warn you about. In the center of that room lies a man carved entirely from marble, covered by a veil. And the veil is also marble, the same stone, the same block. Yet it falls across his face with the weight and delicacy of real silk, clinging to the bridge of his nose, gathering at his chin, pooling softly over his closed eyes. People reach out to touch it, certain their fingers will feel fabric. They never do. What they feel instead changes them. This is the veiled Christ, and its story is far darker, far stranger, and far more human than anyone ever told you. Most people who know this sculpture know one thing about it, that it is beautiful and that it seems impossible. But beauty and impossibility are only the surface. Beneath the veil, literally and figuratively, lies a story of ambition and obsession, of a man who played God in a chapel in southern Italy, of ancient secrets, of a sculptor who produced the greatest work of his life and then, mysteriously, never equaled it again. To understand the veiled Christ fully, you have to go back not to 1753, when the chisel finally went still, but to the beginning of the most dangerous mind in 18th century Naples. His name was Raimondo di Sangro, and he was the kind of man history produces perhaps once a century. A mind so restless, so voracious, so unwilling to accept the boundaries of what was known, that his contemporaries could only explain him in two ways. Either he was a genius, or he had made a deal with something darker than genius. He was born in 1710 into one of Naples' most powerful noble families, and from childhood, it was clear that ordinary life would never hold him. He studied under the Jesuits, mastered Latin, Greek, philosophy, chemistry, and engineering before most young men of his class had finished learning to ride. By his 20s, he was conducting experiments in his private laboratory that his neighbors found deeply disturbing. Lights that burned without flame, machines that moved without obvious mechanism, substances that changed color, texture, and state in ways that no one could explain. He was not performing tricks. He was doing science. But in the 18th century, the line between science and sorcery was drawn by whoever held the most power, and the church held all of it. Di Sangro was excommunicated in 1751, a sentence that in that era was not merely spiritual but social, political, and potentially fatal. And yet within a few years, he was reinstated. The details of how he achieved this remain murky to this day, but historians believe it involved a personal arrangement with Pope Benedict XIV. A pope who was himself an intellectual, a collector of curiosities, and a man who understood that a mind like Di Sangro's was perhaps more useful inside the church than condemned by it. Whatever was exchanged in those negotiations, it bought Di Sangro something more valuable than absolution. It bought him time to finish his chapel. The San Severo Chapel had been in his family for generations, but Raimondo transformed it from a conventional place of worship into something else entirely, a philosophical theater, a monument to human knowledge, a coded message in marble and paint that scholars are still deciphering today. Every sculpture in it was commissioned to represent a concept. Disillusionment, depicted as a man trapped in a net of marble thread, so fine it seems physically impossible. Modesty, sincerity, the release from deception, each work is extraordinary. But at the center of everything, literally placed at the heart of the chapel, he positioned the veiled Christ. And for this, he chose a young sculptor named Giuseppe Sanmartino. Sanmartino was 32 years old when he received the commission. He was talented, but not yet legendary, a craftsman of real skill working in a city full of real skill. What Di Sangro asked of him was not a conventional statue of Christ. He wanted something that had never been done. He wanted a veil, not a separate veil attached to the figure, not a symbolic gesture toward fabric, but a real veil, carved from the same block of marble as the body beneath it, so convincing in its translucency that viewers would doubt what they were seeing. He wanted, in other words, the impossible. And Sanmartino gave it to him. What followed was a work of technical mastery so extreme that it has no true parallel in the history of sculpture. To carve a translucent veil in marble, a sculptor must work at two depths simultaneously, cutting the outer surface of the veil while preserving the features of the face beneath, which he cannot fully see and cannot yet reach. Every millimeter removed is a permanent decision. There is no undo. The margin between a veil that suggests translucency and a veil that collapses into a flat slab of stone is measured in fractions of a centimeter, and Sanmartino maintained that margin across the entire figure, the hands, the feet, the torso, the fabric pooling beneath the body. The result is a Christ whose muscle tone is subtly, heartbreakingly relaxed in the way that only the dead truly relax, This is not a man sleeping. Every detail insists on that. This is a man departed. And yet, almost immediately after the veiled Christ was completed and placed in the chapel, a rumor began to circulate through Naples. A rumor so persistent that it has never fully died. People whispered that the veil was not carved at all, that Di Sangro, with his laboratory and his secrets and his dangerous knowledge, had developed a process to petrify real fabric, to apply actual cloth to the statue, and then, through some alchemical or chemical method, transform it into stone while preserving every fold, every thread, every shadow exactly as it fell. They said he had turned the real into the permanent. They said the veil had once been cloth and was now marble because Raimondo di Sangro had willed it so. It is a story that feels designed to be believed because di Sangro himself did nothing to discourage it. He understood reputation. He understood mystery. A man who could turn fabric into stone was a man to be feared, respected, and left alone by enemies, of which he had many. Whether the rumor was something he planted deliberately or something that simply grew in the fertile soil of his already legendary strangeness, he cultivated it, and it worked. For 2.5 centuries, the story survived. Modern science has since settled the question, though not without reluctance. High-resolution material analysis of the veiled Christ confirms what master stonecutters had always suspected. There are no seams, no boundary, no transition point where one material ends and another begins. The veil and the body are the same continuous stone, worked by the same hands, from the same original block. Whatever Sanmartino did, he did it with chisels, patience, and a level of spatial imagination that defies easy description. The petrification theory is almost certainly false, and yet, here is the thing that lingers. Di Sangro's basement still holds 2 human skeletons with their vascular system somehow preserved. Arteries, capillaries, veins all still intact, rendered in a material that has never been definitively identified. Scientists have proposed theories. None have been proven. The chapel keeps its secrets even now. What does any of this mean? It means that the veiled Christ exists at the intersection of art and obsession, of craft and conspiracy, of a sculptor's genius and a patron's dark imagination. It means that the most astonishing things human beings have ever made were rarely made by accident or in peace. They were made under pressure, in service of someone's impossible demand, against the grain of what everyone else believed was achievable. Sanmartino probably did not know, when he set his chisel to that block of marble in 1753, that he was making something people would stand before weeping 270 years later. He only knew that Di Sangro had asked him for the impossible, and that, against all reason, he had found a way to give it. That is the untold story of the veiled Christ. Not just a miracle of marble, but a collision between one man's limitless ambition and another man's limitless skill, and the haunting, silent, veiled figure that collision left behind, lying in a chapel in Naples, waiting for you to come and not quite believe your own eyes. If this story moved you, if you found yourself leaning forward, asking questions, wanting more, then you are exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe to Echoes of Time, hit the bell, and stay with us. Because history is full of rooms like this one, and we are only just getting started.